Matthew Holt. Now down on the floor with him to the SAP booth with Dr. David Delaney, who is the Chief Medical Officer of SAP. David, thanks for joining me here.
Sure thing, Matthew. Yeah.
So SAP, known for being the massive ERP company out of Germany, but does a lot of other stuff for quite a lot of other companies recently.
Absolutely.
Including SuccessFactors, Business Objects, a bunch of other companies along the way over the last decade or so, I know.
Yeah.
A couple of things. So tell us a bit about your footprint in healthcare, first here and then in the rest of the world.
Yeah, so Matthew, our footprint globally is probably more what you traditionally think about in SAP. We have a very large ERP footprint in the provider space. A lot going on there. And within the life sciences space, pharma pretty much all runs SAP.
Sure.
Large device manufacturers all running SAP. And then of course we're a powerhouse within the analytics space. So pretty much most of the major hospitals are running Business Objects. We have a very strong partnership with Epic, and pretty much all Epic users or organizations are using Business Objects as well. And we have a very vibrant and growing footprint with HANA, our in-memory computing database.
So talk a bit more about HANA, because that's the sort of the new part of SAP, which was the old part. Tell a bit about it, what its development is and what it does, and then how that's relevant for healthcare.
Yeah, so I think, when you look at HANA, it really came out of the fact that SAP is across 25 different sectors. And, as we looked at the sectors, particularly the ones that were very information intensive and at the leading edge of using information, a bit over a decade ago, they were really beginning to run into significant challenges and complexity and trying to integrate this information and trying to be able to analyze it to really make their business's decision and data-based. And then they were also facing another challenge at the time, and that is globalization, where increasingly they're competing on a global basis in a far more rapid fashion. So the old way of analytics, looking at analytics of what happened last quarter, last year, really was challenged. They really needed to shift to a real-time business where they're able to really react more organically based on what was happening in the enterprise and even begin to predict what was going to happen and be able to control their own destiny. And so it was clear that disk-based databases, ones where the data is stored on a spinning magnetic hard drive, were just too slow. The latency of pulling the information off that drive was too slow really to go real time and to really serve the information needs of these large enterprises. So looking at the factors out there, processors are getting faster and multiple cores, multiple brains on them. Memory was getting cheaper. And so what they were able to do is, what we did was engineer an in-memory computing platform where the data is kept in memory, so each element is kept on an atomic basis, one time only, in memory, and stored in a very simple fashion. And then people can apply lenses at runtime, so they can apply various views to the data and really have what amounts to a conversation with the information, where they can ask a question, see the result, and then drill down on it. And there's no predefined dimensions that you have to worry about or aggregations information. It is very, very pure. And on top of that, we have visualization layers where there's graphical user interfaces. So users, and these are the applications that we have available, and users are able to begin to explore the data themselves. So domain experts. So, in the case of healthcare, physicians, nurses, all providers, as well as administrators, can begin to interact with their own information in a very liquid fashion. And it makes it much easier to do what healthcare really needs, and that's combine clinical, financial, claims, and operational data at a service line level, and really allow people to begin to understand care delivery, where variance is occurring, why that variance is occurring, and begin to parse out, whether that variance is good variance you want to try to propagate throughout the institution, what that variance is negative and you want to try to eliminate, and then the stuff in between, really allowing the physicians to continue to practice in the ways they see fit. The pathway to rigidly defined algorithms for everything you do is never really going to work in healthcare. There's too much fluidity and too much uncertainty, but and we also need that kind of area in the middle to also allow innovation, right? Because we don't want to formulaically prescribe a way to do things and raise the mean, but also stifle innovation. So this really gives you that insight into the data.
So if you've got this database, a couple of questions. So is HANA cloud-based or is it a version per institution typically?
No, great question, Matthew. So when we first started, it was really an on-premise solution, and then we really moved to on-premise, cloud or hybrid. And now we're really at a cloud first.
Even for the really large customers, like the big sellers of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. We still offer on-premise if they need it, but the speed of innovation, the time to value in the cloud is just super important.
And are the customers ready for that?
Yeah, I think they're headed this way. It's been an interesting thing. When I started, healthcare IT on the commercial side about a decade ago, you brought up cloud or storing things off premise, and the conversation was immediately shut down. Then it moved to people at least interested enough to at least hear you out. And now I think we're at a point where it's really a question of when and not if. I mean, most organizations know it's happening. And I think, interestingly, the security challenges we're facing, people realize that there's value to outsourcing that and really consolidating it into really hardened sites where they have the world-class people to really try to keep it.
SAP or Amazon might do a better job than the guy with the keys to the basement, right?
Exactly. I mean, because at this point, we're really facing everything from government actors to large crime syndicates and others with deep capabilities and deep assets and ability to really do some really sophisticated hacking.
Cool. So let's talk a bit about how this is data getting used, and it's a bit philosophical about how you think healthcare is going to change with this type of stuff. Off camera, you brought up an example of bringing a bunch of different data sets, including weather and other stuff, into making some decisions around resource use. So give me some sense of how interesting ways you're seeing this getting used, and then the next question would be, what kinds of applications are being built on top of HANA?
Yeah. So I think in terms of use cases, which I'd call it just game changing. One of them relates back, and this is near and dear to me as a physician. I practiced for 14 years as a critical care physician, and one of the big challenges is making decisions with very limited information sets, right? So you have information ahead in front of you, you have the patient, and then there's oftentimes information that in other data silos within the organization or up in the cloud that might actually help make a better decision for the patient. Yet we just can't bring them to bear at the point of decision. And so what we do is end up extrapolating, based on experience and using gut intuition to drive it. A real-world example like this that we're attacking today is in the area of oncology. And when you look at oncology, only about 5% of patients are enrolled in clinical trials, and the other 95%, their data is used during their care. But actually, once their care is complete, it ends up just being stored and archived, and it never feeds back into the institution to help make better decisions, use that real-world evidence to understand how you can provide better care, or even on an individual basis of a patient, how you might make a decision that's more refined for that patient based on people very much like them who've been through the system. So we're working with organizations like ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the Institute Gustave Roussy, and NCT, the National Center of Tumors in Heidelberg, Germany, to begin to bring this institutional knowledge, this institutional memory, if you will, to bear at the point of decision. So what we do, and just to give you a sense of this, is we start out, one of the most important things is a tumor marker that might have caused a mutation for a cancer. So we go in and identify that. Now, in the real world, most of the time this lives in a doctor's note or a pathology report, both of which are unstructured, right? So we have to immediately dig into data and begin to do natural language processing on the data and do linguistic analysis on it. We have to be able to, parse out and knowing to be different, the difference between a report that says a patient's mother is BRCA positive, however, the patient tests negative today versus no history of BRCA positivity, the patient tests positive. So we go in, we do that linguistic analysis, we map it to an ontology, and then we begin to reach out to data sources, both on-premise, in other silos within an institution, as well as cloud registries of data, and we dynamically create a microcohort of patients matched to the patient. We're similar in terms of their age, gender, ethnicity, obviously their tumor marker, as well as key comorbidities, like if they have renal failure or something else like that. And we are able to plot that out dynamically into what's called a Kaplan-Meier curve, which shows survival comparing treatment, A versus B or C, and you look at survival over 5 years. And the exciting thing is this isn't a Kaplan-Meier for small patients, 5% enrolled in clinical trials who are not actually very much like the patient sitting next to you. They're hyper matched to that patient. So we're able to do this all in matter of tens of seconds, often 20 to 30 seconds. We come back with this, and so we're actually able to now really leverage that real-world experience with patients very similar to the one you're trying to make the decision on at the point of decision. And to me, that's incredibly exciting because it really points toward healthcare where information, no matter where it lives, on-premise, off-premise, it can be brought to bear to help drive better decisions. So in essence, what we're doing is really helping empower physicians to be the best that they can be by giving them better, more complete information that's contextually relevant at the point of decision.
So you're doing the Vinod Khosala's 80% of support rather than 80% replacing 80% of doctors,
yeah,
right?
Great point, Matthew. Yeah, I think one of the challenges that most organizations have is that they just have far too few data scientists and analysts, and they have so few that basically they're relegated to only the most important questions. Often the board or the CEO or senior execs on key institutional questions. And when you look at how they're actually spending their day, a lot of it's spent in Excel spreadsheets doing speeds and feeds and data wrangling. And only maybe 10 or 20% actually spent on data science or creating value. And so really what we talked about earlier with HANA, we're able to really invert that so that folks are able to spend much less time on data prep and 80% plus time on actually creating value and getting engaged in the data. And then I think the really cool thing is that when you now have visual tools to be able to have people explore the data themselves, we open up the gates to domain experts. So now physicians, nurses, physical therapists, all the people involved in the care continuum.
Basically eliminating that data scientist role and giving it to the end user.
It's democratizing the data access, really, which makes a big difference.
So, last question about on the technology. Do you have a partner program of people building actively outside companies building stuff on HANA? Is that still progressing along? Where are you in that process?
Yeah, we're at some late stages, some very, very exciting conversations with some very key players in healthcare in terms of building on top of our platform. We have a number of provider organizations. Again, we have 25 members or so, and it's growing constantly, are actively using HANA. They're Epic users, for instance, in the Epic Consortium, 40-something members participating in it, in large organizations, and they're really building some very unique and interesting challenges, out there. And then we're also working with commercial organizations to build on top of our connected health platform.
And last thing, show me your socks. All right, David, part of the Nick Atkins Plink Sock Tribe.
Yeah.
I've been talking with David Delaney, Chief Medical Officer at SAP. Thanks for your time, David.
Thank you, Matthew.